Welcome to the London Free Press Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Gilbert. London City Hall is one step closer to cracking down on landlords who practice so called renovictions by using N13 eviction notices. In a move that would protect renters, a city committee has endorsed tougher rules for landlords who want to renovate their units, which require renters to move out. So today I'm talking with London Free Press reporter Jonathan Juha about the motion and how it might be received at full council. Hi, Jonathan. How are you?
Not too bad on yourself.
I'm good. I'm good. First of all, let's just talk about what does renoviction mean? What is that exactly?
So as you said, renovation is a term that has been used sort of like to replace the N13 eviction notices. This is a legal process in which, a landlord, when they need to do repair or renovations to a unit that they own, but the work is so extensive that they need to have the tenant out of the unit. So they provide these notices, and then again, the tenant has to leave the property while the work is being completed. Once the work is completed, that tenant has the right to return to the property, paying the same rent they were paying prior to the work starting, right? Uh, what has happened in recent years is as the rental market has, prices have increased and it's become more difficult to find units and things like that. Critics say that landlords have started to use this mechanism to actually, get the people out of the unit and then abuse the system by taking too long to complete the work, sort of like forcing the tenants to find other accommodations, maybe signing a lease elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way, what they can do is complete the renovations. And then when they release the market, the unit in the market, they're not no longer constrained by the annual, increases that the government set out. They can increase the price to whatever the market would bear. So, for example, if a unit has been, occupied for 10 years, maybe that person is only paying about $900 a month for rent. But
Mm-hmm.
once that unit becomes vacant, then the landlord can, put the price at whatever price point they want. So that can increase it to, 1,300, 1,500, 1,700 or whatever. So that happens regularly with any unit. When once a lease is ended and a tenant leaves the property, the landlord has the opportunity to again uh, price it at whatever market values are there.
Okay. Um, so is this affecting all types of renovations in units, or what types of renovation? I mean, I'm assuming there are still renovations that some landlords could do while the tenant is still living there. They don't have to move out, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're thinking something like, fixing maybe the bathtub, in the
Okay.
washroom, some minor repairs, you wouldn't need to go through this extra step. This
Mm-hmm.
would only involve the bylaw that the city hall is working on would only involve works again in which the landlord is saying that they need the unit to be empty in order for them to be able to complete the work. So what this
Okay.
would do, it would require the landlord to get a $400 pay for a $400 fee, have an architect or an engineer do the review of the projects and make sure that in fact the work that they say needs to be done requires a tenant to actually leave the property for the completion of the work.
Oh, okay. So that's part of this new bylaw. And what was the discussion at the committee meeting this week on this new bylaw? Because I know the four committee members unanimously voted for it, right?
Yeah, it really seemed like council is very supportive of the measure. They are trying to figure out, what would be the right balance on how to apply it. But in general terms, this is being pushed by the knowledge that we're facing a housing crisis here in the city. And one of the issues also, again, pushing rents up is when you have a long-term tenant who has been paying, for 10 years for the same rent, they have a price point that is comparatively cheaper than what we are seeing right now in the market. But
Mm.
once those tenants leave, again, landlords have all the rights to increase the rent. But then again, you're losing some of that affordable stock. The problem and the key issue here is that there seems to be what they called during the meeting rogue landlords, people who are just taking advantage of the system and make use of these N13 eviction notices to really simply kick their tenants out of their units so they can, increase the prices and make more money out of it. So councilors themselves said that this is not targeting the good landlords who have legitimate reasons for doing some of more extensive work or renovations in units. This is
Hmm.
really for those who are trying to take advantage of the market and trying to come up with whatever excuse they can to evict the tenants that they have so they can bring someone in at a higher price point.
But it seems to me that this will affect all landlords anyways, because if they have to do any renovations, they will have to go through this new process. Do you think that this will, and in doing your reporting and talking to some people, will this deter any potential landlords from entering the market? Because we know we're in dire need of rental units and therefore landlords. Is this going to deter anyone from becoming a landlord and having rental units?
Honestly, I wouldn't think so. This is more sort of like a protection for tenants themselves because the rules are still in place that these N13 evictions are only needed for extensive work. It's just that it seems like some landlords have used this loophole. And again, you hear of the horror stories of, okay, they evict the tenant and then work that should take, 2, 3 weeks to be completed. It's taking 6, 7, 8 months or up to a year. So
Mm,
it's really like a tactic that they have been using. So uh, both counselors and city staff have been talking also that they want to find, like a price point or a method that it doesn't really deter
mm-hmm,
landlords from actually following the process. Sort of like a fine line between being able to have a program that is self-sustainable, that it pays for itself and it's not a burden to taxpayers, and one that won't push landlords underground. But definitely, it comes from a position of trying to protect tenants and try to close that loophole that has allowed so many landlords to take advantage of it. Because we have seen, one of the biggest defenders of these type of measures is the Acorn tenant group, and through reporting that they did themselves through Freedom of Information, they showed that in London, it ranked fifth in Ontario in the numbers of N13 eviction notices that have been issued between 2017 and 2023. So it shows that as the market has tightened and prices have gone up, the number of N13 evictions have also gone up, not only here in London, but across the province. But
mm.
again, they argue that is one of the mechanisms that landlords are using to simply get rid of the tenants and being able to get more money for the units.
Charge more. Can you explain how rent works now? Like how much could a landlord increase the rent when someone is still living there? Like they didn't move out, they're still there.
So, well, in that case, there are two areas that you need to look at. If the building was used for rental prior to 2018, it's still rent protected. So it means that it can only increase by whatever amount the province says each year that it can increase. Obviously, landlords, they still have the opportunity to appeal to the landlord and tenants board for a higher increase than beyond that goes beyond what the province is suggesting, and they have to justify why that is. Maybe they have done, extensive work or repairs to the buildings and things like that.
Mm,
But then it has to be approved by the board. For new buildings after 2018, there's really no rent control. So they have the ability of increasing rents once the 1 year contract, like once the year has passed, to
mm,
whatever amount they want. That has led, to some cases where you have seen that increases that go beyond, 10, 15%, which can be a big hit for tenants. But
mm-hmm,
that's sort of like how the system works right now. Now, the rent
okay.
control protections were removed by the Ford government as a way, they say, to uh, motivate more development and allowing developers to recoup the investment on the money faster by being able to increase the rents and play around a little bit more easily with what they're charging their tenants.
Okay. Um, so this proposed new bylaw here in London, we did look at some other cities that have done something similar, in particular Hamilton. So how does our proposed bylaw compare to Hamilton's that they did implement?
So it mirrors it, but it also has its unique elements. For example, when you look at the prices, the fee that Hamilton is proposing, it's about $750. But while a landlord looking to do renovations to an entire building would only pay for that one fee. Here in London, they're looking at creating a more for specific units. So if you want to do
Okay.
renovations for 10 units, you would have to pay the fee for each 10 of them.
400 times
Uh,
10. Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So again, it would be now the onus would be on the landlord to really prove that you really need to vacate the entire building to
Mm-hmm.
complete the work, or maybe you just go for a unit by unit case to make it cheaper as a landlord, right? Uh, and the cost of the program itself, it would also vary. You know, Hamilton is anticipating that they will need to hire about 28 people to be able to implement this. Uh, City staff is proposing only 6 people for London at a cost of about $581,000.
Okay.
They would have to do some rejigging between their own bylaw officers and their own staff, but that's what they're anticipating that the program could cost. And there are still some other elements that need to be defined. What the fines would be for someone who is found to be violating the rules
Mm-hmm.
and all of that, but there's still some consultation process that needs to happen before this implemented fully, and that would be happening this year.
There were some counselors that were a little bit critical of this and saying, is the fees that we're going to collect in terms of the new licenses and the fees and the fines, will that cover the people that we have to hire, the 6 people that we have to hire? Like, do we looked at that yet?
Yeah, one of those was Deputy Mayor Sean Lewis. He was asking again because he was looking at, I guess, at the fees that Hamilton was charging to what city staff is proposing.
Right.
Uh, and he did express some concern about, are we doing enough to recoup the expense of what it's going to cost us to run the program? And staff say, obviously, this is still, early draft, and things can be tweaked, but they're using as reference other fee programs that they have and what they anticipate the demand would be, and all of that. But the idea from counselors is that they want this to be a self-sustained program, that it doesn't become a burden to taxpayers, and that whatever it's collected through the fees and through the penalties will be enough to cover the cost of running this program, which again, it's meant mainly to provide an extra layer of protection
Mm-hmm.
tenants.
For tenants, yeah. We did hear from the London Property Management Association, and they say that this new bylaw would conflict with the Ontario Residential Tenancies Act. How is that?
Well, the main argument they're making is that this is beyond the jurisdiction of the city,
Mm,
that the Ontario laws already have a system in place, and they are stepping their bounds out of bounds by trying to add another requirement. So we'll see how what happens with those oppositions. They also argue how, any additional cost will definitely be, passed on to tenants at the end of the day for whenever work needs to be completed, and all of that. And even groups like Acorn, who are, in favor, also believe that the city may not be going far enough, because they say that
mm,
they would like to see more protection. So, when the landlord it's implementing the right to, given the eviction notice, that they don't have any responsibility to provide any additional accommodations for tenants, who are then forced to find, figure out where they're going to be, how much they're going to be
mm-hmm.
paying. So they would like to see that brought into the table. But again, it you have to have those, I guess, conversations, and see where the limit of what the city powers are, and
Sure.
and how you frame what the bylaw would look like.
Yeah. Okay, so what are we looking for? We had 4 counselors all in favor of this at the committee meeting going to council. How much support would they need to approve this, and what are kind of the next steps for this whole process?
Well, the bylaw goes back to council on June 25th. I think it would need a simple majority, so another 4 votes. I mean, there were already, Councilor Deputy Mayor Sean Lewis was also at the committee meeting. Councilor Carty was also there expressing support. So you seems like you already have 6 votes there.
Mm,
Once approved, again, there's still the need for the consultation process about, have public consultation for what the final bylaw could look like. There's still consultation process that is going to be done separately about what the fees should be like for landlords who are found to be breaking the rules. But staff anticipate that everything goes, smoothly. Implementation could happen in the first half of 2025.
okay. All right. Well, we'll watch and see, and for sure we'll look at your reporting and watch for your reporting at lfpress.com to keep up with that. Thank you so much, Jonathan.